I picked up my phone from the nightstand where I always leave it and found the front camera already open, the screen showing a live feed of my ceiling because the phone was lying face up. That was strange but not alarming until I noticed a notification in the corner indicating that a screenshot had been saved to my gallery 3 hours earlier at 3:33 a.m. I opened my photos with a mild curiosity that turned to ice-cold terror when I saw what the screenshot had captured. Someone was holding my phone. Someone was taking a picture with my front camera. Someone was in my bedroom at 3:33 a.m. while I slept, and the face looking back at me from that screenshot was not my own. It was a woman I had never seen before, pale and gaunt with sunken eyes and cracked lips, and she was smiling directly into the lens like she wanted me to know she had been there. I dropped the phone like it had burned me, and it clattered to the floor face down, while I pressed myself against the headboard and stared at my empty bedroom, trying to make sense of what I had just seen. The doors were locked. The windows were closed. The alarm system had been armed all night, and there were no alerts, no notifications, no indication that anyone had entered my apartment while I slept. But someone had been here. Someone had picked up my phone and unlocked it and opened the camera and taken a screenshot of herself holding it inches from my sleeping body. Someone had been standing over my bed at 3:33 a.m., and I had not woken up, and I had not heard anything, and I had not felt the presence of another human being breathing the same air as me. I made myself pick up the phone again because I needed to look at the screenshot more closely, needed to examine every detail for some clue about who this person was and how she had gotten inside my home. The image was crisp and clear, taken with the high-resolution camera I had paid extra for when I upgraded last year. The woman's face filled most of the frame, but I could see my bedroom behind her, my curtains and my dresser, and the edge of my bed where a shape that must have been my sleeping body was barely visible in the darkness. She was older than me, maybe 50 or 60, with gray hair that hung in stringy clumps around her face, and skin that looked almost translucent in the glow of the phone screen. Her eyes were the worst part. They were open too wide, the whites visible all around the irises, and they were looking directly into the camera with an intensity that felt personal, that felt like she was looking at me specifically, that felt like she had known I would eventually see this image and wanted me to feel exactly what I was feeling right now. Her smile stretched across her face in a way that seemed painful, lips pulled back to reveal teeth that were gray and uneven and too long, like teeth that had been growing without anything to grind them down. There was something wrong with her proportions, something I could not immediately identify, some quality of wrongness that made my brain itch with the effort of processing what I was seeing. I called the police, and they arrived within 15 minutes and searched my entire apartment and found nothing. No signs of forced entry, no evidence of intrusion, no explanation for how a stranger could have taken a photograph with my phone in the middle of the night. The officer who interviewed me looked at the screenshot and frowned and asked if maybe I had taken it myself while sleepwalking, if maybe it was some kind of filter or app that had distorted my own face into something unrecognizable. I told him I had never sleepwalked in my life. I told him the face in the screenshot was not mine, could not be mine, was the face of a woman 20 years older than me, with features that bore no resemblance to my own. He nodded and wrote something in his notebook and suggested I change my locks and consider installing additional security cameras inside my apartment. I did everything he suggested and more. I changed the locks, I installed cameras in every room. I started sleeping with a knife under my pillow and a chair wedged under my bedroom door handle. I deleted the screenshot because looking at it made me feel sick, made me feel watched, made me feel like the woman in the image was somehow aware that I was staring at her face and was smiling wider in response. I thought that would be the end of it. I thought whatever had happened was a one-time occurrence, a glitch in reality that would not repeat itself, a nightmare that I could wake up from and eventually forget. The second screenshot appeared 4 nights later, and this time the woman was closer to the camera. Her face filled the entire frame, her nose almost touching the lens, her eyes so wide I could see the bloodshot veins threading through the whites. She was still smiling that terrible stretched smile, but now I could see more detail, could see that her lips were not just cracked, but splitting, the skin peeling back in thin strips that revealed raw pink flesh underneath. The timestamp said 3:33 a.m. The location data said my bedroom. The metadata confirmed that the image had been taken with my phone's front camera while I lay sleeping less than 2 feet away from whoever or whatever was holding it. I checked the security footage from that night and watched myself sleep for hours, watching the feed from the camera I had installed in the corner of my bedroom, watching for any sign of movement or intrusion. There was nothing. The footage showed me lying motionless under my covers from midnight until 6 a.m., when my alarm went off and I started my morning routine. There was no one else in the room. There was no figure approaching my bed. There was no moment when my phone was lifted from the nightstand and held above my sleeping face. But the screenshot existed. The image was in my gallery. The woman's face was burned into my memory with a clarity that made me doubt everything I thought I knew about cameras and evidence and reality. I took my phone to a specialist who examined the file metadata and confirmed that the image had not been transferred from another device, had not been edited or manipulated, had been captured by my phone's camera at the exact time and location the data indicated. He could not explain how a photograph could exist without appearing on video footage of the same space at the same time. He suggested maybe the camera had a blind spot, maybe the angle was wrong, maybe there was some technical explanation that he was not smart enough to figure out. I could tell he was disturbed by what he was seeing, could tell he wanted me to leave his shop and take my impossible photographs with me. The screenshots kept appearing every few nights, always at 3:33 a.m., always showing the woman with her face pressed closer and closer to the camera. In the fourth image, I could see individual pores in her skin, could see the texture of her cracked lips in horrifying detail. In the fifth image, her mouth was open, and I could see down her throat, could see darkness that seemed to extend too far back, could see what looked like movement in the shadows behind her teeth. In the sixth image, her eyes were no longer looking at the camera, but were rolled back in her head, showing only whites, and yet somehow I still felt like she was looking at me, like she could see me, even without using her eyes. I stopped sleeping in my bedroom and moved to the living room couch, but the screenshots followed me. I stopped sleeping at night entirely and tried to rest during the day, but I would wake from naps to find new images in my gallery. Images time-stamped to the exact moment I had fallen asleep, regardless of what time that happened to be. The woman was adapting to my schedule. The woman was finding me no matter where or when I slept. The woman was getting closer with every photograph, and I did not want to think about what would happen when she finally got close enough to do whatever she was building toward. I showed the screenshots to friends and family and watched their faces go pale as they scrolled through the progression, watched them struggle to find rational explanations for what they were seeing. My sister suggested I was being stalked by someone with access to technology. I did not understand. My mother suggested I should see a psychiatrist because the stress was clearly affecting my perception. My best friend suggested I throw away the phone and buy a new one and never look at those images again. I tried that. I bought a new phone with a new number and destroyed the old one and thought maybe I had finally escaped. The first screenshot on my new phone appeared 2 nights later, and the woman was not alone anymore. There were faces behind her, crowded into the frame like a family portrait from hell, all of them pale and gaunt and smiling those stretched, terrible smiles. I counted 7 faces in total, but some of them were partially obscured, overlapping, pressed together in ways that suggested they were competing for space in the photograph. They all had the same wide eyes and gray teeth and cracked lips. They all looked directly into the camera with expressions that might have been joy, or might have been hunger, or might have been something for which no human emotion had a name. I called my mother and asked if she could check on Grandma's urn, and she said she was looking at it right now, and why was I asking? I could not explain. I could not tell her that I had seen her mother's face in a photograph taken by something that should not exist, taken inside my apartment by figures that did not appear on camera footage, taken by entities that seemed to exist in a space adjacent to reality where they could see me, but I could not see them. I just said I missed Grandma and hung up and stared at the screenshot until my eyes burned and the faces seemed to shift and move when I looked away. I woke from one of these dreams to find my phone unlocked and the camera open and pointed at my face. The screen showed the live feed from the front camera, but there was something wrong with the image. There were figures standing behind me that were not there when I turned around to look. The screen showed 5 or 6 of them crowded around my bed, their hands reaching toward me, their mouths open in what might have been screaming or laughing, their eyes fixed on the back of my head with an intensity that made my skin crawl. When I turned to look at the room, there was nothing there. When I looked back at the screen, they were still there, still reaching, still watching me through a camera that could see what my eyes could not. I threw the phone across the room and it hit the wall and the screen shattered, but it did not stop recording. Even with cracks running across the display, I could still see the figures standing around my bed on the screen, could still see them leaning closer to examine me, could still see them turning to look at the fallen phone with expressions that might have been amusement. One of them walked toward the phone with steps that made no sound on my hardwood floor. One of them picked it up with hands that were too long and too pale and had too many joints in the fingers. One of them turned the shattered camera toward herself, and I saw that it was the woman from the screenshots, the original woman, the one who had started all of this by taking a picture of herself in my bedroom at 3:33 a.m. She held the phone close to her face, and I could see every detail of her ruined features through the cracked glass. She opened her mouth and spoke, but no sound came through the speakers, just her lips moving in shapes that I could almost read, shapes that looked like they were forming words meant specifically for me. I watched her mouth and tried to understand what she was saying, and eventually I did. She was saying my name. Over and over again, my name, spoken in silence through a shattered phone screen by something that had been watching me for weeks and was finally ready to make contact. The screen went black and stayed black, and I sat in my bed shaking until the sun came up and proved that the night was finally over. I thought maybe the broken phone had ended whatever connection existed between me and the woman and her growing collection of faces. I thought maybe destroying the camera would destroy their ability to see me. I was wrong. I was so completely wrong. The screenshots started appearing on my laptop camera the next day. They started appearing on my tablet. They started appearing on my smart TV that had a camera built into the frame for video calls. They started appearing on my doorbell camera and my security cameras, and even on an old phone I found in a drawer that had not been charged in 3 years. Every device with a camera became a window for them to watch me through, a portal for them to reach out and capture images of themselves standing in spaces they should not have been able to occupy. The crowds in the photographs grew larger with each passing night. I started recognizing more faces among them. My grandfather, who had died when I was 12, a childhood friend who had drowned in a lake the summer before high school, a coworker who had suffered a heart attack at his desk 2 years ago, an ex-boyfriend who had been killed in a car accident 6 months after we broke up. The dead were gathering in my photographs. The dead were pressing closer to my cameras. The dead were waiting for something, and I was terrified that I knew what it was. The most recent screenshot appeared last night, and the crowd of faces had parted to create a gap directly in front of the camera. The gap was shaped like a doorway, an opening in the mass of bodies that seemed to lead somewhere deeper, somewhere darker, somewhere I could not see because the light from my phone screen did not reach that far. The original woman was standing at the edge of the gap with her hand extended toward the camera, toward me, her cracked lips moving in that same silent repetition of my name. Behind her, the others were gesturing, beckoning, inviting me to step through the screen and join them in whatever space they occupied. I do not know how much longer I can resist them. I do not know how much longer I can stay awake, can avoid the cameras, can pretend that reality is still solid and meaningful and real. They are everywhere now. They are in every reflective surface. They are in the dark corners of every room. They are standing behind me right now as I type this, their faces visible in the black border of my laptop screen, their hands reaching toward my shoulders with fingers that never quite make contact. The woman is smiling at me through the webcam as I write these words. She knows I can see her now without needing to take a screenshot. She knows the barrier between us is getting thinner. She knows that soon she will not need a camera to reach me, that soon she will be able to step out of the screen and into my world. That soon I will join the crowd of faces that gathers around sleeping strangers and takes photographs to show them what is coming. If you are reading this, then please understand that I am not crazy. Please understand that there are things that exist in the spaces between what cameras capture and what our eyes perceive. Please understand that the dead do not always stay where we put them, that some of them find ways back, that some of them are hungry for the warmth and light and life they can no longer experience. She is coming through now. They are all coming through. And somewhere in the crowd I can see a space waiting for me, a gap shaped like my body, a place where I will stand once they finish what they started on that first night, when a woman I had never seen took a picture of herself holding my phone and smiled because she knew exactly what was coming and wanted me to see it too. The screen is breaking. They are here. And the last thing I see before they pull me through is my own face reflected in the cracked glass, smiling too wide, eyes open too far, already becoming one of them.